Hello traders, welcome to another daily analysis. Today is November 10th, Thursday. We're just 5 minutes to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the day, 2 days after the election, and of course things starting to calm down a little bit, as many of you know that the market actually rebounded largely in the equity market right after the election yesterday. And of course, we still have the anti-Trump protest going on within the US, but nothing really escalated to an alert level. And in a bigger picture sense that, Trump had a meeting with Obama today. And again, it's quite peaceful. Everything is actually quite positive in terms of the sentiment. So of course, as mentioned, in this kind of timing, the fundamental data is not really important to drive the market, as people were really focusing on the sentiment. So basically, today is of course another light economic release day. We don't really have much data, but interesting thing is that I saw the news headline actually saying that the U.S. jobless claim falls to a very low level. Now, it's not this data is important because this data actually came out every Thursday. And if you're looking at the actual number, it's 254K. It is, yes, lower than previous and expected. But what I'm trying to say is that this is not important data, right? But however, it became the headline. Now, as I keep mentioning that when you're reading the news, it is best for your interest to sign up with more than one news media, because medias are sensational, and that is exactly what I need to do. The agenda for media is to get more viewership. So sometimes you have to look at the actual content, but sometimes you have to look at why is this non-important, really not really important news becomes the headline. And that's because you can read just by looking at that, knowing that the sentiment of what the media is trying to project or try to influence the major citizens in US or the world. So right now, the jobless claim falls down to a low level, and all these thing, and then feature today Obama and Trump very happy peacefully in the White House meeting. Just like the media is trying to calm the crowd, and basically that's what the sentiment is. It's might not be really positive, but at least all the politicians and major players are trying to inject a positive sentiment into the market on top of this election upset for many people. So at this point, of course, it's going to be quite positive for US dollar, for all the high yield currency, all the commodity currency. And so we'll get into a chart just very quickly. Equity market will actually mix today, with European stocks went down, but the S&P and Dow Jones went up. And WTI still closed down today, but nothing significant, not a really big drop level. So things about the oil market is that it's really not looking well in the future, just looking at the political situation right now. As mentioned now, the OPEC itself has already had enough trouble, since the members are not really having enough interaction to come up with a good agreement. That's the first thing. Second thing is that the oil itself is in a surplus status right now. So if the producers are not willing to cut, then we will expect to see the oil price continue to drop well over the next couple months, and really depend on what's happening later on. And of course, that's going to be a drag on the Canadian dollar, but also the election result is already caused a lot of uncertainty for Canadian dollar, because the Trump has made a statement that he's going to renegotiate all the North American agreement between Mexico and Canada. So now, of course, these two nations are nervous about it, and then now the currency is not looking well. And we actually have the central bank coming out saying that not the central bank, but the poll from economists coming out saying that now the rate cut probability for Canada is actually increased, because originally last week we said that the Bank of Canada said that prior to 2018 they are not going to do anything about the interest rate, but now the rate cut probability has increased. So of course, looking at Mexico, the peso was actually really not doing well at this moment. So let's get into the chart when we're talking more about that. First thing first, looking at our Aussie Newsy trade, which we actually got filled yesterday. And then, like I say, today it is green, but it's very indecisive. As you can see, we go as high as 106.50 to touch the 200-day moving average. And then it's always, which is also a resistant area. And then we drop down here. So we actually close a little bit higher, but for me, it's really not a strong signal in terms of the price action. And again, market is really in this puzzling status as situation right now, as no one knows. It's too quickly really to digest the election result. Especially the result was unexpected for most people, so it's really hard to digest it at this short period of time. So we will actually expect to see a little bit sideways movement unless we have another fear coming in from different nations or from US itself for the next few days or weeks to come. Otherwise, it should be a sideways movement if things continue to do it. And I do understand the policy maker, central banks, politicians, really, their agenda right now is really trying to calm the market down. If they're smart enough, really try to calm people down, saying that, hey, it's not the end of the world. And that's why you see a least indecisive movement. Now, what am I going to do with it is really just holding it. But of course, I really, I'm a human too. So of course, my emotional level is kind of scared too. I don't know what's driving the market right now. And it's really hard to see the direction. I know it's short period of time, all the things going to go, but I just don't want to get stopped out before the things calm down. So for me, normally I don't do it, but in this kind of situation, when you're facing a drawdown or really in an indecisive movement, and you're not convinced enough for your trade, for whatever reason is it, there's a few options you can do. First is just get out. And there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't let fear or greed drives you. But honestly, that's because of these two emotions. That's why we have a financial market, to be honest with you. So instead of fighting your emotion, you should really just manage it, embrace it, understand it, and recognize it. So I am recognizing myself now that I do have a lot of uncertainty, and probably due to fear. I do understand that. So in this kind of situation, you can of course analyze the market logically. Write down all the point of why you are still in this trade. Was there any particular reason for you to hold on to this trade? And if you answer all your questions, but yet you are still nervous, there's few things you can do. You can just get out, because you don't want to lose sleep during the trade or while you're holding the trade. That's really a bad way of managing trade. If you're losing your sleep, you're either not convinced enough in the trade, which you shouldn't be in at all, or you are risking too much. So for me, there's few things I can do. Again, I can get out, or I can reduce my risk capital, or I can tighten my stop loss. So these are a few things in mind. Now, if you're looking at daily chart, it's really nothing I can do. I don't know where to tighten it at this point. I don't want to, up to 1.0650 or 1.4 are all very strong support. So what can I do is you can actually go into a shorter time frame, and hourly is really my favorite time frame. You go to hourly and very simply just draw a trend line like that, and then if everything during the hour chart break below 104.75 and close below it, then yeah, you can get out early, actually save yourself some risk, or you can draw another things like that. But I don't like to do it because it's just too close, right? So you gotta understand, you can draw multiple trend line. No one says the trend has to be one and only. You can draw many trend line, act as a support or resistance for you. So it's just a sort of tips that I use myself, just to give myself, you're looking at a picture in a micro scale, but you can always manage in a micro scale. So macro scale and manage in a micro scale. Of course, a lot of people like to use 4-hour chart. Definitely nothing wrong with it. Use 4-hourly chart. It's same thing, You can have a lot of insight you can use for our chart to see where it's going. So just understand that's different way to manage your trade if you are already in and not certain about what to do. Okay, so let's take a look at, and another our trade is cable. And obviously we did not get filled. And this is another thing I'm talking about, is that why I like to use stop order entry is because yes, although I lose few pips by not entering at retracement, but I also avoid a lot of losers and drawdown because I want the market price action to prove to me that it has strong enough momentum. An interesting thing is not only this reaction of price action, is that today the market has shown, and the news has shown that my analysis was completely inaccurate, and I'm fine with it. That is the thing you have to acknowledge as a trader, is that don't hold on to your own analysis as if it's, like a Bible scripture. Right? I'm not saying Bible is right. I'm just saying that don't hold on to your view too stubborn and without any open-mindedness, because no one knows how the market is going to react to a piece of news. Yes, economically speaking, you have a theory. Fundamentally speaking, you have data. But understand the market composed by traders. Traders are human. Humans are driven by emotions. So you don't know how or what kind of result people are going to react. You have some certain pattern that you can guess, you can estimate. That's why we put our trade according to this probability. But you cannot be certain how this person or persons is going to react. So today, British pound actually performed better than US dollar. And US dollar actually performed better than most major currencies. So what happened here? How come British pound is stronger than US dollar today? Again, it has nothing to do with fundamental, but it has everything to do with these emotions that right now US elected a president that was a populist, that was way out of. So basically thinking like this. UK and US are two nations, right? So thinking like you have to think them like an entity, like human. Okay. So at the June, UK, this person did something that is out of people's expectation, and that's actually against most people's expectation, is that they left Europe. And now, although they are happy about their decision, as that's exactly why the referendum works, because majority of people vote to leave. They're happy about their decision, but they are also scared because now they feel very lonely. They feel like, wow, maybe we just made a big mistake, and now we are screwed. So that's their emotional level. That's what they're thinking, like, we're screwed. Now everyone is going to laugh at us. But because US basically made the exact same result, which is exactly an unexpected result. And now, not only that, give UK a tremendous faith, because now they're looking at this big brother of the world saying that, hey, they actually did the same thing. They don't care about what other people think. They made their own decision out of the expectation of the world. So now that's inject a lot of faith into UK, because now they're thinking, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe we did a decision back then and people think we made a big mistake. But now, looking back, it's actually not that bad because, hey, look at US. Look at this big brother. He is doing the same thing. So that's give a lot of faith into the UK market. Now, that's just the sensational level, the sentimental level. The price action level, of course, as I mentioned, that the pound dropped significantly already. So also we have a lot of short orders into pound. But at this point, you don't be surprised to see a lot of price action, a lot of profit taking, or a lot of short-term buying. But just to let you know that today, why we have a strength into British pound, because look, it's not only cable. If you're looking at pound yen, there's a large buying power into British pound today. Look at euro pound, large buying power into British pound today. So it can be explained sentimentally because the US election actually given Britain a lot of faith to know that they did not make a mistake back then, because now US is doing the same thing and they are happy basically having a new allies that is doing the same thing. And that's why. So whether this is going to continue, well, again, no one knows. That really depends on what happened to the market. But that's just a sentimental analysis. You looking at it fundamentally, which is the actual data, the actual job data, the actually unemployment rate, GDP, and inflation. UK is not doing too well as if for now. But of course, that can all change. It really depends on the negotiation between the UK and the Eurozone next year. So right now, I don't know where this thing is going to go. But in terms of sentiment, as long as the world or the US itself is positive, we will expect to see more strength into British pound. And again, that was not something I expected, and I also definitely learned a lesson. But again, very happy that I did not get filled, too stuck in here. Of course, people say, hey, this is, sort of like a double top. You have this resistance. Of course, yeah, it could very well much be a double top, but I don't trade with this price action only, right? So I'm just looking at a bigger picture right now. So nevertheless, I'm going to cancel this order, just to be safe for now. So I'm canceling my cable, and I'm still holding my Aussie newsy, but I'm monitor closely with the news, with the progress of the world, and also I'm probably going to an hourly shorter time frame to manage it more microly. All right, let's take a look at our regular 28 currency pairs. So first thing is the euro dollar. Okay, so euro pound. Again, let's mention, euro is dropping versus British pound. Euro Swiss is another down day for euro dollar. But again, euro Swiss are both safe haven currencies, so you don't really have much movement at this point. Euro dollar right after the election surge and drop, and now we have another down day. Euro Aussie is an update which shows a negative strength into Australian dollar, which is very interesting. Euro CAD is indecisive. Euro New Zealand is also indecisive, and Euro Yen is also actually an update compared to yen. So Japanese yen most likely is still the largest selling currency at this point. And in terms of what's going to happen to euro, we do have few political events coming up. We have the election in Italy, I think a referendum, and then there's the election next spring in France, and then of course election in Germany. So that's all going to really shift the view of the euro. But right now, the general sense is that because Donald Trump gets elected, the Republican basically control the House of Representatives and the Senate. So right now, whatever policy will be made will be quite straightforward. Shouldn't meet too much barrier in terms of the policy. And of course, Republican is always considered a pro-business political party. So it's going to be good for the business sense. And also, you read the news today saying that the inflation expectation has risen significantly, and that's why you see a bond yield has also risen. And the equity market is mixed, but the inflation has caused the bond basically being, people like to hedge it, just because the inflation concern is coming up. Now, other than that, really, actually, this thing can change today, tomorrow, and next week. So just don't hold on to any things you read too rigidly, right? Basically, have an open mind, because everything can shift nowadays, depending on what people say or what happened to the world. Pound Swiss franc, again, like I say, British pound actually is the strongest currency today. But does that mean we are going to buy it? Well, it depends. I'm not going to buy it because I'm holding these daily candles. I want something that has some fundamental sense. But in terms of sentiment, yes, it is in a good sentiment right now. But whether the sentiment going to continue for how long, I don't know, honestly. So not ready to convict in this long-term daily chart. If it's in the short-term time frame, if it's in hourly, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, yeah, you can actually buy British pound for your day trade. It's not a bad idea because now the sentiment is quite strong. Dollar yen, dollar Swiss, and dollar CAD, as we just saw, really a strong strength into US dollar right now. Dollar CAD continuing to go up, as I say, that CAD does not have the best sentiment at this point. If you're looking at Aussie CAD is actually a down day for Australian dollar. So let's look at Australian dollar. Aussie Swiss, a down day for Australian dollar, a down day for Australian dollar. Aussie CAD, another down day. Aussie New Z, and Aussie Yen. And Aussie Yen. So the interesting to point out is that why did Australian dollar being sold off right now? Actually, nothing really happened. Australian dollar, it is no fundamental progress, so it's really a sentiment play. As you see, last election, Aussie Yen was the largest, single movement currency among the major currency. Of course, you have larger movement in the US dollar and peso, but Australian dollar versus Japanese yen was a huge movement. So Aussie was basically being bought and sold right now due to the sentiment. So right now, a lot of profit taking, a lot of uncertainty. So you are going to see an up and down market into the Australian dollar versus other currency. Now, that's the other good thing about looking at the currency personality, because basically the only pair that lost the battle today versus Australian dollar is New Zealand dollar. And as I mentioned, they both are commodity currency, so they both are going to hedge out in this sentiment. That means that the sentiment going to have very little effect in terms of this currency pair. So when you want to do something that's more safe, more risk hedged, you will choose the same type of currency to hedge together. So you buy Aussie New Z to avoid sentiment. You buy Swiss franc, Japanese yen, or sell to avoid sentiment, as they both are safe haven currency. So that's the thing. But of course, you are going to miss down to the profit or the movement. So it's just really your own personal preference. I'm a very risk-averse trader, so I always consider my risk as the number one reason. Swiss franc really indecisive market, and the Kaiyang. So like I said, Japanese yen is largely being sold off right now. New Zealand Swiss, New Zealand dollar is being sold off as usual. New Zealand CAD and New Zealand yen. So right now, as I mentioned, it's really just a sentiment play, and unfortunately, I don't have any signal at this point. I don't see anything up to now, but you can definitely buy or sell just by reading the news nowadays. But again, it's Thursday and tomorrow it's Friday, so really pretty much the week is finished for me, because I'm not going to hold any trade if I'm not in already during the weekend, or enter any trade at Friday and holding through the weekend, because there's exactly a lot of time, anything can happen, especially just right after this election upset. So I don't want to risk too much thing on the table. And as I mentioned, because Japanese yen is largely sold off, so basically my idea is that if the sentiment continue to be strong, then yeah, we can definitely pick pound yen to keep going. But we don't really have much room to go right now, since you have one major resistance here. So maybe it's too late for me to keep going up, but definitely once the sentiment shift back, this will be once there's another uncertainty globally or any bad events, if Donald Trump says something again very negatively, then this is a very good level to short. This is the support resistance zone. So if it hits here and then now the world turns to pessimistically again, then yeah, this is a good level to short. Same thing as cable, but since the world is driven by US dollar, so maybe pound yen will be a better choice. Other than that, then I really don't have too much thing. You can buy punk cat as well in this kind of situation. If the oil market continue to go down and we have continued sentiment strength into the world, then British pound can be a good pair to buy. But again, I'm not going to do any of those now, or even in the daily chart. I'm probably looking to do it in intraday trading if there's a significant opportunity. Other than that, I'm just going to manage in my Aussie Newsy trade in an hourly candle and 4-hourly candle, just to see what's happening now. Okay, so that's it for today, and tomorrow we will do a wrap up for the week. And then I hope you have a wonderful week, had a wonderful week, and then also just enjoy the last day of trading tomorrow. Don't risk anything. Again, like I say, it's Friday, and especially after this election, there's going to be a lot of news, I think, or more protest, or just a hunch, like something might happen during this weekend. So definitely don't do anything too impulsively. In terms of the global progress, again, no one knows. If you're reading the news, you're going to read a lot of mixed journalists have different view. And again, that all goes back to the human nature. People who are positive always going to see positive things. People who are more negative, I shouldn't say negative, sorry. People who are more optimistic are also always going to be optimistic to a point that might be naive for some people. But vice versa, people who are pessimistic are always going to be very pessimistic to a point that's it might seem negative for some people. So I understand that's how people write article and driven the market by the media. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you have any question, feel free to comment or ask me. And otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.